Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jena Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. I've got a question for you guys. Well, more of a question for the audience. I need topics for Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
I agreed to write articles for them. I guess this is about a year and a half ago. So I've been chugging, putting one out every couple of weeks or so. And I started off with a list, like these are the things I'm going to write to, in Rolling Stone. That list is empty. So I, I need
What kind
ideas.
of things in this? I'm giving myself away here, clearly showing I have not read your Rolling Stone, all your pieces. But
How could
what
you?
kind of things do you were on the list originally?
The stuff that seems to go over the best is just writer advice. So like I just did
Yeah.
one on pantsers versus plotters. I've done stuff on, outlines. I've done things on character development and stuff like that. Those seem to hit pretty well. I've done a couple op-ed type pieces. I stay away from anything political. I don't want any part of that.
Hmm.
Just try to keep it light. My general thinking, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I wrote, like I've been under contract for I think 7 years now for a book on craft that I have not turned in. Like every time I go to work on it, it's because it evolves so fast, right? Like
Yeah.
everything changes in my world, everything changes in the publishing world. And if I like put a book out on this, like it's carved in stone and it's old news by the time it hits the shelves. So like I haven't been able to bring myself to finish this, but I've been going through that and kind of taking the headlines and the topics and the titles for the chapters and turning those into Rolling Stone articles. And my general thinking there is if I get enough of those, then I could take all the Rolling Stone articles and, eventually put the book out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Don't you do something like, who's your favorite who is your favorite character to write and why? I mean, like it's a little bit different, but I think as a reader and a writer, those are things I like to read because you get to kind of see like how that character evolved and what
Yeah.
made you, like what stood out about it. And I think that appeals to both readers and writers, so those are kind of
So
fun.
I wrote this piece recently on Substack about kind of comparing writers to con artists favorably. But
Favorably? Okay, sure.
it's turned out to be one of the better pieces. It's all part of something I've been working on, which is kind of a deeper dive. I've been looking really closely at con artists and how what they do, how it applies to other industries or whatever. Maybe you could think of some things like that. Like what other industries can writers draw from for a particular, skills, the way they market, shape their craft, all that.
all right. So
You
Basically,
know,
no,
the word slinger
no,
podcast approach is what I'm saying.
I
yeah.
like
What I'm
that.
thinking is I'm gonna hit your Substack account and just grab all of your
Just do
titles
it.
and
Yeah, man.
headlines. And
Perfect.
You
yeah,
can. You're absolutely welcome to do that.
I
What?
want
I'll
one
just,
on
What's a little
outside
theft
of the
between
box
friends?
promotion,
well,
JD, because I think that's
I
always what
won't,
like, oh,
I
I was
won't
just gonna
steal them.
say,
I'll just write them better.
yeah, I write them better.
Oh, oh, the agony. I
I'm
like.
sorry,
You
Christine.
had to have
Christine had a
seen
good
that
idea.
coming, Kevin. You had to have seen that
Yes,
coming.
that's perfect. No,
I'll
I
do
want one
anything for
to
a bit.
JD to do one on promotion because that's where you're always with like outside of the box promotion and you're always doing stuff that's different. Maybe you don't want to give away your secrets, but
Look, you got to do
I
that
want to
and then
read
give
that.
the
I
ones
want to read a
that blew
promotional.
up, like the ones that failed on you spectacularly.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that people are going
Talk
to be
about them
interested in.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go there too, but I mean, it's again, it's like it changes so fast. Like even for me, book to book, like something that I did on one book isn't going to work on the next book, and
I don't
you've
think
got
that
to,
matters. I mean, I
No,
think
it's
it's
like
no,
how you think
interesting.
about it,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's more
writers
about
like
the
to,
approach.
yeah, writers
okay,
like to see kind of like, oh, that's an interesting thing. And then they start thinking in other ways. And readers are just, they're always interested in like, oh, that's really interesting, a part of the business that they don't necessarily see or are exposed to every day. So I think I think, I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
still in branding hell, so if you want to write anything about branding, please.
you
How
need
can
to
you
get
be
rid
in?
of that other person who's got the same name as you.
We have to
I
talk.
know. We don't need to
Someone's got
talk
the
about
same
that.
name as you, Christine?
Yeah. She's
Wow.
a philosophy professor at Brock University.
Is
So we
that
live,
who I've been talking to? Holy crap.
yeah, we live in the same province and we have the same name.
How's that even possible?
She's always ahead of
I,
me on Google. Curse you, other
I,
Christine Daigle.
No,
This is
you're
what
I was gonna
other
say
Kevin
first
Tumlinsons feel
now.
like. I know it.
I think you come up first now.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I think she does because she's always doing something new where I'm like, because her university is always
Okay,
bringing
you
it up
have to,
there.
what you got to do is you got to reach out to her and partner with her.
Right.
You're right. I see her. Yeah. But you come up
I have
first.
never taken a philosophy course in my life, so like
Well,
fail.
I think it would be amazing if the two of you partnered up and co-authored a book together. That would be
That would be
amazing.
hilarious, actually. Yeah.
that would solve the problem. What you really need to do is Google Knowledge Panel, like that's the name of it, and you need to somehow get one created for yourself for the for your author persona because that always shows up at the top of the search results.
Hmm.
So if she doesn't have a knowledge panel and you do, then you're going to kind of
You have
take
to
lead
tell me
there.
this off air.
Well,
Alex,
a
cut
Rolling
that.
Stone
No, I mean if she's listening, it's
article.
whoever gets there first.
No.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good one. Yeah.
We'll use Christine as a guinea pig in a Rolling Stone article.
I
I
love
have
it.
a Google
I'm up for
Knowledge
it.
panel. It's it's pretty cool. It's hip.
Cool.
I'm hip.
Does,
I'm a cool person.
does it have your mugshot?
It I don't remember what photo it landed on.
No.
Oh, maybe I don't have one anymore. I don't see it. Wah, wah. Okay.
I know what
I'm
I'm
moving
doing on my
on.
vacation
Bo-
next week.
yeah, both of you get on that.
Oh, wait, there
All
it
right.
is. All right.
All right.
Terrible
What
picture.
is in the news, Kevin?
Oh, we got to do the official stuff now. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Okay. AAP sales softened in December, but grew to almost $8.6 billion in 2024. Fueled by Spotify's entry into the market, digital audio sales soared, overtaking ebooks as the leading digital format. Ebooks also saw a modest rise. Adult fiction sales reached 3.3 billion, making it the largest category of revenue, with hardcovers and trade paperbacks seeing significant increases. Adult nonfiction also showed steady growth, indicating the strength of traditional reading formats despite the rising popularity of digital content. The industry also saw fewer returns. The total trade sales reported by the AAP for 2024 amounted to $8.6 billion, a nearly 5% increase from the previous year.
This is basically a lot of stuff to tell us that book sales are up, right?
Book sales are up. Things are
Well-
looking
Book
good.
sales are up.
Yeah, I was like, Jenna had some things to say about this off air, so I want to hear what Jenna has to say about this.
Go, Jenna.
I did.
About adult book sales. Yeah.
Adult
Oh,
book
well,
sales?
Yeah, I mean, it's just YA was, I don't know.
Sorry.
We talked about this a few days ago. I don't remember now, but I think it's just exciting that adult is finally picking up. YA was like king of the roost for so long. It dominated everything.
Yeah.
And adult is finally picking up.
Do you-
I think it's also, the reason we're starting to actually even see new adult imprints pop up. Because, they didn't need them when adults were reading YA, but now that I think that has shifted towards adult, they want to capture more of that reader. So
Yeah, plus that YA audience is also aging up, so they're looking for things that are going to feel familiar, but are a little, less candy, I guess,
well,
a little less
truthfully,
YA.
I think that YA actually shifted towards new adult. I mean, I would argue, what would you say, Christine, since like 2018, 2019, it's
Yeah.
Mhm.
a lot of the books
Yeah.
that were being marketed as YA weren't really YA. They were definitely new adult, but because I don't
There was
know,
no
maybe readers
category.
in that genre were just more comfortable sticking in the YA sphere, it kind of stayed. But then there kind of became a shift. I definitely think romantasy helped with that a lot. Like there was
I'm sure.
definitely
Yeah.
more of a adult vibe that they could not market as YA. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Thank you, romantasy. Thank you.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep.
All right. Well, next up, London Book Fair 2025 to focus on AI and developing readers. The London Book Fair 2025, slated for March 11 through 13 at Olympia, London, will highlight artificial intelligence in publishing and strategies to engage young readers. There's those young readers again. New additions include an expanded audio village due to the audiobook boom and 3-day academic publishing conference. The fair will also see significant participation from countries including the US, China, and many European nations, and a dedicated Chinese pavilion.
London Book
I
Fair
was-
is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Have any of you guys ever gone?
No.
Went 1 year. I haven't been back, but yeah. But I went, but at the time that we went, I guess we determined that it wasn't indie author focused enough. So I was going on behalf of Draft Digital back then, and so we kind of tapered off from it. But I'd like to go back actually, because it's amazing.
I was on the fence. My agent invited me to go, but I'd basically be sitting at my agent's table, at the fair. Like, I don't know how much author, like focus type stuff there actually is. Like, if there's even
Yeah.
content that I
But I think
I
for
would enjoy.
you especially, I think it would be a good opportunity to kind of just get out and rub elbows with other folks in the industry, mover and shaker folks in the industry, just outside of the U.S. Like
Yeah, that was kind of the thinking. I mean, a lot of my foreign publishers are there, so I'd be able to meet them for the first time. Like people that I've only known by email and the occasional
yeah,
phone call and things like that.
yeah,
That's just a long flight.
It is a long
I,
flight.
I'm at the point, like, for me to actually go to something, like I live on an island, so I have to take my car to the nearest like little airport, and from the little
yeah,
airport I've got to take a bus to the Boston airport, then I've got to get on the plane and actually go to wherever I'm going. But like it's a journey. Like you've got to pack snacks.
yeah.
Snacks are the most important part. You have
Yeah.
to make sure you have enough snacks.
Yes, travel
Yes.
snacks are a necessity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Snacks are the most important travel
well,
accessory.
I'm not going to this one, but maybe next year. Maybe next year I'll go. So let's get a Kickstarter going.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
interested to see what comes out of that. There's always a good rap about like what's going on in the industry after the London
yeah,
Book Fair.
especially with the focus on AI. I am kind of curious to hear where they go with that. Like,
Yeah.
which direction is that going to skew? Is that negative? Is it positive? Is it, you know, somewhere in the middle? So, all right. Is the publishing industry turning the page on nonfiction paperbacks? The publishing industry has seen a significant decline in nonfiction paperback releases, dropping 42% over the past 5 years. Publishers are increasingly focusing on hardcover, ebook, and audiobook formats due to higher profits and changing consumer preferences. Authors view the lack of paperback editions as a setback, not just financially, but also in terms of career development. Paperbacks are seen as providing a second chance to reach readers who may skip more expensive hardcovers. The decision to print fewer paperbacks is influenced by retailers' limited orders based on sales data, complicating the profitability of paperback runs. The shift is driven by the growing popularity of audiobooks and ebooks, which are perceived to be cannibalizing paperback sales. Industry experts predict a continued decline in nonfiction paperbacks. Some publishers, like Turner Publishing, are experimenting with releasing all formats simultaneously to maximize exposure and sales with the crucial first weeks of a book's release.
Is this
So
all paperbacks or just mass market? Because I read something else that said that this was more specifically aimed at the mass market paperback.
And that's probably right, because I think I know what you're talking about, and it was quoting this guy. So this is the same Wall Street journalist that
Okay.
was in both articles. Yeah. So
Yeah, which
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I have mixed feelings about mass market. Like I have like fond childhood memories of mass market paperbacks because they were everywhere, right? Like in the grocery stores and all
Yeah,
that. And
but
I
this is
like that they're
specifically
small.
nonfiction. So I think that most people are consuming nonfiction books now mostly via audiobook in my experience. I know I am. And it's because, like I don't feel an emotional attachment to a nonfiction book per se, usually. Unless it just really changed my life. And then I'll go out and probably buy the hardcover. But the most people are consuming this stuff because, there's a question they want to answer, there's a skill they want to learn, there's a principle they want to explore, and they don't really necessarily need the paperback on their shelf. They just want the information. And so audiobook becomes kind of the de facto way to
That's
do that.
so interesting. I am the exact opposite. I would never listen to a nonfiction on audio
Hmm.
because I would want, if I'm gonna like, it's something if I want to learn about, I'm probably gonna want to reference it and I'm gonna want to, you know, take
Yeah.
notes. And I just can't do that
So
with audio.
ebook would be better for you, I think. Because then,
Um, so I am a very complicated reader. Sort of. I read differently. I read faster on my Kindle than I do a regular book, and I couldn't tell you why, but I
yeah.
do. And so I tend to read fiction on my Kindle. I don't actually listen to a lot of audiobooks, much to the dismay of most people I know, but
Yeah.
I don't. And then I read nonfiction in, in the actual book.
Yeah.
I just learn, I can highlight it. I learn it's very tactile. And if I'm reading nonfiction, it's because I want to learn. And so that's how I learn.
I think it depends like the depth of the nonfiction. I like nonfiction audiobooks. Like if it's something I'm not thinking about too deeply, like if it's lighter nonfiction, if that makes sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
if it's something I really want to learn, then I like an ebook. But
Well, I think from an industry standpoint, they're having trouble just trying to figure this out because,
yeah.
right now we've got a lot of options, and like the
Mhm.
traditional publishing world, if you go back a couple of years, they'd release a hardcover. 6 months to a year later, they'd release the paperback. The audiobook and ebook came along. They decided to release those at the same time as the hardcover. So now you've got multiple choices. Some people prefer a paperback. Some people prefer a
Yeah.
hardcover. So they're juggling all of that. But then on the business side of it, from what I've been seeing with my own titles through Simon and Schuster, you put out a hardcover and it's only got a shelf life of about 2 to 3 months
Yeah.
before you start seeing returns on that title. The bookstores send it back to make room because they know the paperback is coming. Now, when the paperback comes out, it'll stay on that shelf a lot longer. I've seen them stay up there for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Like they'll sometimes stay indefinitely if you're an author that people come in and ask for on a regular basis. So they're trying to figure that portion of it out too. So like in a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to even put out a hardcover anymore if you're looking for longevity on the shelves.
Yeah.
With nonfiction, I think a lot of it comes down to like what Jenna just mentioned. I think people pick those up. They want to, dog mark the pages or earmark them. They want to get the highlighter out. They mark certain sections. You can't really do that with an ebook. You can't really do it with an audiobook, not as effectively. But there's basically just so many formats and they don't know how to deal with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new format pop up in the next couple of years.
I think that they could lean a little heavier on print on demand for this aspect of it, though. Like
Well,
rather
they could.
than
It's the cost though, and like a lot of indie authors don't see this, but like for a print on demand title, let's say you're paying $12 or something to have that printed, and you're selling it for 14, so you've only got a
yeah,
$2 margin there. If you're printing in bulk, you're printing that same title for like $1.50 to $2, so you've got a much bigger profit margin. They would much rather overprint and have these books sitting in a warehouse and then just recycle them, just turn them back into pulp and turn them back into new books again. Than they would ever go to a print on demand thing, unless that cost gets to be somewhere competitive. And just right now, it's
yeah,
just
that's what I was
not.
going to say. There's probably a friction point in there where, there's if you do an actual cost analysis, there's going to be a point at which print on demand is going to be cheaper for you than, you know, stocking and
Makes me
keeping
sad though,
warehousing.
because I do think that, the thing that never gets looked at in some of these equations is, hardcovers are expensive, paperbacks are less expensive. And so if you get rid of that, you're cutting out, a demographic of people who may not be able to purchase hardcovers consistently. And I know the argument is then, well, ebooks are cheaper, but you have to have a device, and so you do still have a cost that is typically much higher than, some people can afford. And
Yeah.
I just feel like that never ever gets talked about on
But
like
you're
why
only, so
paperbacks
you're
are so
discounting
important.
though that everyone actually does have a device. You just don't like that device for reading.
No, any
Which,
device, any
Yeah,
device.
any
I'm
device
saying
is
any
expensive.
device. A cell phone is expensive. A
right, but
tablet is expensive. A
most
laptop is
people have
expensive.
some form of cell phone though. And so,
Some, I mean, I think that, there are segments of the US, of Canada, which is why I did like the one who is doing all three, because that's what they do in other countries. You get a hardcover, paperback, they're all released at the same time, and the consumer can decide which one they like best.
yeah.
I don't know how the cost is better, like, how the UK has determined that that's more cost effective than layering it like we do in the US, but I've always been a fan of that approach.
Yeah.
Well, in the UK, there's a definite shift going on. Like new releases are coming out in paperback. And mainly because they don't have the, it's just like here, like they've lost a lot of their bookstores. They still have Waterston's over there, which is basically like Barnes and Noble here.
Yeah.
But the bulk of their book sales are actually happening in grocery stores and drugstores and other places. And people in those places are accustomed to getting a paperback for less than $10, US.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting stuff.
Hi, this is JD Barker. Authors often ask me what is the best way to get my novel option for film or television. The truth is, there's no right or wrong way to make this happen. I've got 8 projects in the works for the folks in Hollywood, and no 2 of them came together in the same way. What I can tell you is you need to get your book in front of the decision makers. And one way to do that is with the help of our friends over at booktrib.com. Through their Books to Screen program, they'll include your novel in a special insert in Screen Daily magazine. The magazine averages 38,000 readers in print and another 76,000 readers online, all of them film and TV insiders. They also distribute copies at the Cannes Film Festival. You can't get better coverage than that. If you want to see your book on the screen, visit booktrib.com. They'll help you get it there.
Okay, we should probably talk about the interview. So JD, who is up this week?
This week, we've got Marshall Karp on. Marshall is a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a TV and screenwriter, documentarian, and playwright. Working with James Patterson, Marshall co-created and co-wrote the NYPD Red series. His latest novel is called Don't Tell Me How to Die and releases March 4th. Here he is, Marshall Karp.
I'm now, well, I was already looking forward to this, but I'm actually looking forward to this a lot more after spending the past like 10 minutes or so talking to you, Marshall. But talking to Marshall Karp, who is the author of Don't Tell Me How to Die. And I can't wait to discuss this book because I've been reading not just the premise, but like when you signed up for the interview on Calendly, you wrote like some dialogue between you and the main character. So my first question is like, how often do you interact with your characters as if they are sitting in the room with you?
Oh my God, you're a writer. Come on.
I
Do
know.
you ever find yourself sitting at the keyboard and you start to write something like, I mean, my first book, The Rat Factory. I mean, Mike Lomax is an LAPD detective, and he's recently widowed, and his annoying father has fixed him up with this absolutely terrific woman, but Mike is not ready for Diana, and they go out on like one kind of date, and it's okay, and he's still not ready, and then
Yeah.
they go out on another, and I'm thinking what Mike's thinking, like I'll just say good night and that will be it. And all of a sudden, cut to they're in the bedroom, and
Yeah.
it was like all I did was type. And my wife asked me, my wife goes, well, you're like, wow. I said, I did not have sexual relations. No, I mean, this, I didn't plan it.
Yeah.
Don't the characters sometimes just take over your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, one book I wrote, the 2 detectives were like furious, at the deputy mayor for his behavior, and and they say, okay, there's the deputy mayor is called a press conference, and all of a sudden the character goes, you can bleep Mel Berger, and I go, whoa, and it's because like the character was so in, and they were right.
Yeah.
He was being a complete bag of jerks. That were
There you go. That's
He's
nice and family
right.
friendly. I appreciate that, Marshall.
Yeah, he's not just a jerk; he's a bag of jerks. Anyway, so let's talk about Maggie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting in the timing. If anybody cares, it's like I had written 7 books with James Patterson.
Yeah.
With James Patterson.
Yeah. Those finger quotes. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for too many people, but he doesn't write all 30 books that he publishes a year.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was very much time to move on, and I was ready to move on. And I had a couple ideas, and all of a sudden, this this is 6+ years ago. This is a book that is the longest time in the making for me. I can usually, especially I've had a bunch of series, I know the characters and I think what's going to happen next. But this woman comes into my head one night and she just starts telling me her story, and she's fascinating. She's successful, happily married, 2 kids, great job. And
Yeah.
I've changed her job over time, but she was, like, also, and I don't know how this crept in, but she's a bit of a micromanaging control freak who likes to get everything done her way. You can't identify with that, can you, Kevin?
No,
No,
can't
I
even
know.
imagine.
I can't. I have a good friend who calls me Mike, last name Romanager. Like, and she's fascinating. She's 43 years old, and she tells me, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Whoa. And she said, I know what's going to happen when I die. I have this great husband, and they're going to just pounce on him.
Yeah.
They're going to, like, these women, these predators. And she said, and I'm not going to let that happen. And I'm kind of like nodding. Who is it? And she's in my head.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm going to find his next wife before I die. And I'm thinking, well, I write murder for a living. So
Yeah.
what if his next wife is married to some guy that is in the way? And then Maggie says to me, did I mention that in high school I was voted most likely to kill someone to get what she wants? And I'm
Hey, I
going,
dated that girl.
so I'm sorry. That sounded like a phony laugh, but that's my real laugh.
No, that's fine.
Anyway, it's like, I go, wow. And then I said to Maggie, because now we're on a first name basis, I go, like, isn't this, I come with this Y chromosome. Don't you want to get some really cool female author to write your story? At which point she says, dude, or, words, or less family words to that. If she goes, I can't exactly jump to the next writer, I'm in your head.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to think about this. And then I started asking women, what would you do if you knew you were dying and your husband was going to be fresh meat? And some of them said, well, I'd still want to go to Disney World. And the best answer I got, and 6 years later, when I reminded my friend Eileen of what she said, well, I would just go out and get an STD and then let's see if Michael can get laid. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, this is a mission. This is a one-of-a-kind mission. And she can do anything. She's dying, but this is her last. And how do I make this interesting? Why would Maggie even want to? Her husband's attractive enough.
Yeah.
He's looking. But then I realized that she had a backstory where her mother died young, and her father was like, fresh meat.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I will write that backstory in about 2 chapters as I'm writing. 31 chapters later, I had what my editor thought was a great YA novel because it was the 17-year-old Maggie. And when I finally finished the first draft, I submitted it to, I have a bunch of friends, mostly women, who would be my beta readers.
Yeah.
And it was clear to them that I did not grow up as a teenage girl because I clearly did not know how to think. You know, we are different. And forgive me because, as Colin Quinn has said, when I was growing up, there were only two genders and one kind of milk. So I'm from like there's
From the
guys.
dark ages there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from the but even with gender fluidity, I realize that it's not always easy for men to write like women when you go really deep.
Yeah.
And I've been told by women that I write great women, and I said, yeah, but that took some time, and just ask my wife.
Yeah. Does your wife, is she like your advisor on that?
No, my wife just thinks that all men are a-holes, and she's fortunate enough to have married their king.
Yeah.
But she does not at all advise me. I'll ask her some questions, but she doesn't want to read anything till it's done.
Okay.
My go-to advisor is this guy, Danny Corcoran, who was a detective first grade at NYPD, homicide. We've been working together for like 10 years. He is, when you're writing crime fiction, it helps if you have someone who understands the criminal mind and police procedure. I mean, I remember when I was in the advertising business, I would watch Bewitched, and Darren would be bringing the boss home from dinner and nervous that Samantha's going to burn the roast. I'm going like, who writes this stuff? So yeah, I lived with this character of Maggie for a long time. I really do believe that characters and writers coexist. I'll find myself talking to them. They'll tell me when I'm right or wrong. It's just, you have to become the character.
Yeah.
You have to say, I mean, I used to have this back in the typewriter. I used to say, when I'd sit down to write something and say, right now, what is going on in the heart and mind of the character that you're writing about? I'll give you an example. Your character is in a fight with his wife in chapter 14, and then breaks his leg falling down the stairs in chapter 17.
Yeah.
Now he's back in chapter 27. You better remember what happened to him 35 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Chapter 27 was like a month after chapter 17. So you have to go back to like, where is my character? You can't forget just because 3 weeks have passed for you.
Right.
And that's knowing where your character is like, oh, duh, right. He's got that going on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you
but
do you plot this stuff out? I mean, do you write it all out?
Oh God, yeah. There's
yeah. I wouldn't have doubted it since you worked with Patterson, but
well, no, yeah. Well, there's two kinds of writers. I mean, there's plotters,
yep,
and there's pantsers.
Yeah.
The plotters, absolutely, especially mysteries, murder mysteries, thrillers. They are really kind of a lot of puzzles, and you want to know that there are all the pieces, and that you have all the pieces, and that you're giving the reader just enough pieces to keep them interested. And so I plot, I kill people, I unkill people. I decide, no, they're gonna, no, I can't kill them yet. But I'm a plotter. I will literally say, oh my God, that guy didn't do it. And I think it just keeps getting better. Then there are pantsers.
Yeah.
They just start writing and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And I'll do that a little bit, but I need to be grounded in, and Patterson, the first book I wrote for Jim, was a book an idea he pitched to me, Kill Me If You Can. And he gave me a 3,000 word outline.
Yeah.
And I turned it into a 75,000 word book, in some interesting chapters show how Matt takes the diamonds to Amsterdam and sells them to a fence. That's it. And now you got to come up with some interesting chapters. So when I write a book, I totally lay it out. And now the ending may change, different aspects of it may change, but I know the arc of the book. And that's, otherwise I'm not going to write it, because otherwise you write yourself into a corner and you go like,
Yeah.
this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. But you do that in between, like your points in your outline then, like playing
yeah.
between the notes.
Sometimes I'll write dialogue in my outline, because
Yeah.
I mean, if I showed you an outline now, like my current outline for NYPD Red 8, subtitle, NYPD Raid, it's the 8th book in this series. You don't have to read it in order, NYPD Red 8, the 1159 bomber. It's a cool title. And as you can imagine, the first bomb goes off in New York City at 11:59 a.m., 1 minute before noon. Very crowded in the city right about that time.
Yeah.
And when the next bomb goes off at 11:59 a.m. the next day, and then another, what do you think happens to New York City? Kind of gets a little COVID-y, doesn't it? It's like, I'm not going out there. I don't know where he's going to strike.
Yeah.
But kind of know when, honey, let's go grocery shopping. It's 3 a.m. I think it's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I probably have a 10,000 word outline for that.
Okay. Now you said you started in advertising.
Oh yeah.
Just like Patterson, just like me, frankly, I was in marketing and advertising. Didn't get to work with the cool guys in New York like you did. But so is that like the roots? Like, let's talk about your origin story a little, because I want to know, like, how did you get to this?
My origin story probably is that I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I might not have known that when I was 7 years old, but I remember going to sleep I loved reading. I love stories. I love television stories. I love, cowboy heroes.
Yeah.
And I read, and somewhere along the line, I thought I'd like to write a book. I didn't know what that meant, but that was in me. And then I found that the best way to communicate for me was in turning words around and making them more interesting. Even when I was at my aunt's wedding when I was 4 years old, and I said something as a 4-year-old that just cracked everybody up, because I have this little, warped view of how to look at things, and I find it fun. I think at my age, I have no filters left, but I think I was, I was shy a couple of filters, so I said and then class clown. But when I went off to college, I was pre-dental. I was going to be a dentist, because wouldn't that make everyone happy?
Yeah. Doesn't that have like the highest suicide rate in the
they certainly, and disregarding the fact that I have all the manual dexterity of a drunken monkey with an Uzi. I mean, I really couldn't have. A lot of people should be thankful that when I got to Rutgers University, which is the Harvard of New Jersey, if you
That's right.
don't count Princeton, I wound up on the school newspaper. I wound up writing, and I wound up in an English comp course. And, my professors were like, "You're a really good writer." I go, "Huh." My high school English teacher said that too. And so I decided I'd major in English, and then I thought journalism. By the time I graduated, all I had was a bachelor's in English. I didn't know what I was going to do. And my girlfriend at the time was in advertising, so I wound up in the Army for a while, and then I wound up in advertising.
Yeah.
And it just like, it's not a pathway, but I think if you're a writer, you look to go where you can write. And that is what, and then I think my origin story gets interesting in that, and I like to use this in my bio, the punishment for being a really good writer in the advertising business.
Yeah.
I mean, winning awards and get clients going, I want this guy in my business, is to promote you to the corner office and pay you extra to supervise others, but not write.
Right.
And I did that for 15 years. And I was in my, in that, midlife 30s kind of thing, where you look in the mirror and you go, I'm very successful.
Yeah.
I have a great job. Everybody wants to be me. Why don't I want to be me?
Yeah.
I don't want to, I don't want to keep dressing up in these suits and getting on airplanes. And I've done it. And I was at the top of a ladder. There might have been a few other rungs, but I was more interested in another ladder.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just be writing. And somewhere, I guess, close to 40, I had this thought, and I could put, I say this to a lot of people who are in their 40s, who are just at that, is this all there is stage?
Right.
I go, I'll tell you what I'll do, since you're not happy with your midlife state. I'm going to bring a 19-year-old kid over to your house this weekend. Now, the kid doesn't know that much, except he knows what cool stuff is. And he's going to sit down with you. And at the end of the weekend, he will tell you what career path to follow for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
Now, you're probably going to look at me and say, why the hell would I do what a 19-year-old kid tells me to? Why would I let a 19-year-old kid plan the rest of my life? And I go, well, who planned the first half?
Right.
I mean, you were 19, you thought, okay, advertising, my girlfriend's in advertising, it's cool. But now that you're 40, what else do you want to do? And I said, when I'm 60, I gave myself some room. I would like to be up in my house up in Woodstock, New York, with a dog. I mean, my wife, if she wants to, but right now she actually prefers to live in New York City most of the time. No, with a dog and a typewriter, because I didn't know that it would get better.
Yeah.
And I'd like to be writing some murder mysteries. I didn't think I'd be selling them. I just want to write.
Yeah.
And that, I guess the origin is in that knowing in your early 40s what you'd like to be when you grow up, and being willing to throw everything else away. And I mean, like stock options, money in the pipeline. And eventually, I didn't do it all on, you don't have to leap a chasm in a single leap.
Yeah.
I wrote a play over the course of the summer. I wound up the following 2 years, it got produced. And then both CBS and ABC saw my play and wanted me to write a sitcom. And then I had a full-time day job as a creative director, and I wound up getting a sitcom picked up for air, and the studio said move to LA and run the show. And I said,
Yeah.
no, I have a life. And 2 years later, I got a second comedy picked up for series, which is unheard of, even if that's what your main job is.
Yeah.
And I decided, now or never. And I took a shot. And my show crashed and burned after about 11 episodes, but that was okay. I learned a lot. And
Yeah.
then I got offered a job in Hollywood, and I left my wife and kids in New York for a few years, and I went to Hollywood, which I both loved and hated because I didn't have a life, and the business sucks the life out of you, which is
Yeah.
why in my first series takes place in LA, and I kill off a bunch of the um, a-holes that I worked with in Hollywood. But I know, I knew it inside out.
Yeah.
And then I only wanted to write one book, Kevin.
Yeah.
And I wrote it. And the publisher said, I want another one. And then people read it, and I wound up writing 5 more, and 4, I got a total of 5. And then Patterson called me and said, would you write a book with me? And I mean, I knew him from,
Yeah.
we had lunch, and I go, yeah, what do I have to pay you? And and then the big change came after that first book, which was his idea. And I said, I know you usually come up with the ideas, Jim, but I have an idea for a team of cops called NYPD Red. They're an elite group of NYPD cops who cater to the rich and famous.
Mhm.
So when the chairman of Chase gets robbed, or the Yankee shortstop gets mugged, you don't have the cop on the street. You get like cool cops.
Yeah.
Boom.
White glove cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is better than some of the latex gloves you get from.
Yeah.
So, come on.
I have like a dozen questions I would want to ask right
Well, I'm
off the
sorry,
tail of that.
but we're out of time.
We're almost out of time. No, but we can get through at least
Hey,
one.
you have my home phone number. No, you have my
Yeah, we'll
cell
circle up.
phone. Me.
We'll have to do a follow-up
Screw the rest.
interview.
Screw the rest of these guys. I mean, they don't care. You care.
Cancel your eye surgery. We're doing
Right.
the thing.
Oh, Grandma, I'm sorry, the kidney's gonna have to wait.
So you said you kind of decided early on you wanted to write murder mysteries, and I'm
Yes.
curious, like what was why? What made you decide on a genre right away? Like, how'd you pick?
It's a great question, and I don't have a snarky answer for that. I mean, I could, but no. It's I like the challenge of I like the relationship between writer who writes murder mysteries and the
Yeah.
reader.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're writing romance, you're like you got the cut to Marshall rocking cradle
Yeah.
arm, like oh baby, and I actually knew a guy who was writing porn books for $500 a piece back in the advertising business. I have a great plot for my next book. I go, what is it? He goes, twins. That's a plot, right? So I wanted the challenge of working with my reader. I wanted the challenge of fooling my reader.
Yeah.
I liked, I guess I'm competitive by nature.
Yeah.
And when you work in this genre, and I love the response. I once got a phone call from a friend who said, I am never speaking to you again because you just killed off my favorite character. And she
Yeah.
called me a day later and goes, well, I just read the next chapter. And I go like, well, I'm just playing with you.
Yeah.
Probably other word. I love the relationship. We're on the same level, and I'm trying to fool you. I read science fiction as a kid. And I like the fact that I think people in murder mysteries have less filters
Yeah.
than people in more uptight
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seemed like a natural for me. But I think that what I really enjoy is the back and forth. And when people write to me or say like, I never saw that coming,
Yeah.
I go, yes. I feel so
That's
good.
the
And it's a bond. And
yeah.
it's a bond between author and reader. And I I'm not sucking up to your audience or my audience. I love the relationship. I mean, people email me and I email them back and they go like, I can't believe you're actually emailing
Oh yeah.
me
Yeah.
back. And I'm going like, well, it would be kind of no, I have an assistant who can help me, juggle it and make sure I do. But no, and I don't, there's no form letters, and it's just
Right.
I really do pick up a lot of people up on the street. When my
Yeah.
wife and I go to a restaurant, she goes, "Will you try to pay some attention?" I meet people wherever I go.
Yeah.
I am. It's very confusing for me because I think of myself as an introvert.
Hmm.
I'm a writer. I'm a hermit. I'm sit here.
You're like me. You're a high functioning introvert.
Yeah, well, I like to think of it as an introvert with Tourette's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, hello. No. Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. Colostomy bag. No, uh, no, but I turn into an extrovert when I'm energized by people around me. Like
Yeah.
you're doing that to me right now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
brought me out of my shell. Thank you very much.
That's the whole point. That's the whole idea. And but speaking of out of things, we're out of time, so we got to
So
wrap up. I
I
want to
have
ask
two
you,
words for you,
what's that?
Kevin.
Give it to me.
One's a verb. One no. One's a verb.
One's a
I
personal
love this.
pronoun.
Yeah, I love this. I didn't plug "Don't Tell Me How to Die" too much, but that's okay.
We did.
I
We
would
talked
say,
about it.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think what I love about it is just that you will be blown away by the
And
end.
it's not a murder mystery.
Well, there's a dead body on the first page, but
Yeah, but
it is not a murder mystery. There are no
right.
cops. There's not, well, there's cop, but no, it's not about murder. It's
Yeah.
a desperation
Yeah.
of a woman who would kill someone to get what she wants. And it's just all my books, murders, cops,
Yeah.
killers, um, um one scene, one scene characters, they all have a story to tell.
Yeah.
I love creating characters.
Yeah, me too.
Famous for creating memorable characters. I think that was in a review that I think my Aunt Pearl wrote that.
Oh yeah. My mom said the same thing about me.
Yeah, about me.
About you too. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you for being on the show. And people can find you. We've got a website, and I love it. It's Carp Kills, KARPKILLS.com, where they can find more. Is there any other place where they might want to look? Any other rocks they want to turn under?
Yeah, look, I do a lot. I've been writing a lot about writing on
Okay.
LinkedIn. And my
Okay.
favorite quote for writers who want to become writers is a quote from Richard Bach, and it is it's to encourage everybody who wants to become a writer, and it is this: a professional writer is an amateur who didn't quit.
Love it.
So right on.
That's the perfect way to wrap it up. All right. We're going to go ahead and close out. Thanks for being a guest on the show, man.
Thank you, Kevin.
I don't know how much I trust these James Patterson co-authors.
It's a squirrely group.
Who is the
Very
best
upset that
co-author
no
and
one
why is
told
it
me
Jake?
you were interviewing Willem Dafoe because
I'm something of an author myself. Yeah. So in our chat, Marshall and I talked about kind of a midlife career change that he had, and about reevaluating life goals and choosing a path that basically aligns with your passion. Basically, what do you think? Like, How can writers identify that the right moment for a career shift if what they want is to get into a full-time writing career?
I mean, I did it, like I felt like I came to a crossroads, like I was working the corporate gig, salary was good, I like the people that I work with, but I hated the job, and like I kept picturing myself doing it for the next 20 or 30 years, and like I wanted to like blow my head off just thinking about it. And meanwhile, I would come home and I would write because that's what I actually enjoyed to do, So like when you take a step back and look at it like that, like why not figure out a way to make the thing you like to do the thing that you do? And get away, get rid of the other one. But, like for me, it was a scary thing. Like we sold every possession we had and we, got rid of our house. We bought a tiny little duplex and moved into that. It wasn't something that, we could do lightly or just flip a switch on. Like it was a major decision.
Yeah.
I encourage people to do it a lot younger in life. Like when I talk to authors, that are in their 20s or, coming out of college, like it's a lot easier to make that kind of change, before you've got a family, before you've got a mortgage, you've got all those responsibilities that kind of creep up on you as an adult, try to do it as early as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
liked what he said about it's wild to think that we made these decisions as a 19-year-old because we did,
Yeah.
right? Like our whole life course at 19. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of sobering. You're right. I have let a 19-year-old decide my life.
Right. Yeah.
No frontal lobes,
No
just
frontal lobes. They're not even done for like 6 more years, and you've
There's a
decided what you're
t-shirt for
doing
you.
with your life.
No frontal lobes.
Well, I
Well,
guess they
your
have
frontal
frontal lobes.
lobes
They're just
develop till
not
25.
developed. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
develop till 25. So your brain isn't even done by the
Right.
time you've
Yeah.
made your
So
decision.
maybe you should have some
Uncooked.
kind of do-over opportunity when you reach your 25th birthday. Like, you know, you just went through college and everything, but maybe this is where you switch things up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just depends. I think it's like, you have like JD who felt that definitely. Like mine wasn't really like I hated what I was doing. I think that, I had my son when I was relatively young, and so the stability of a job was like my priority. And
Yeah.
when he graduated, it was like, oh, okay, like that sort of wasn't there. And he sort of was just like, well, you need to go do what you want to do now because
Yeah.
I'm doing this. And he's a very sweet kid, but he was right. I think that conversation like stuck out because he was right. So I think it just kind of depends. Like you might have an aha moment, or you might have like, oh, I'm doing this. I think it just gets hard because you if you're lucky enough to be able to sell everything you own and write full time for a year, even if it's risky, like that's one thing. But if you're not, you just gotta
Yeah.
just write and
I
figure it out.
Yeah.
I had dinner with some writers a few nights ago, and one of them was telling me that she was getting to a point where she no longer wanted to try to reach a full-time writing career because she actually liked her job and she had time to write, but
Yeah.
she liked sort of the point her life had reached. And Christine, I know that you enjoy your job. So
Yeah.
like
I
what's
work a
the
full-time,
yeah,
cognitively demanding, emotionally demanding job, and then I write. So,
yeah.
you know, I think my dream would be to go part-time. Like if I could go half-time, that would be cool.
Yeah,
Because
see,
I
I
do
think
like
that's
my
the key.
job.
I think the key is to have the options. You're right. Like
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
agree
I,
with that.
I can choose what I want to do. I've had conversations with people before where like, this isn't me. I love being full. I love sitting. I can sit all day and write. If things distract me, it actually kind of stresses me out. If things pull me away from it. But I've had conversations with people where it's like, they were more productive when they had to do the writing around a full-time job. Like,
Yeah.
they only had an hour in the morning, or they had their lunch break, or they stopped at a coffee shop on the way home or whatever. They actually got more writing done and had a greater
Yeah.
variety of things.
I do feel that because like I do better with stress and deadlines, and I'm not sure my body does better, but like I'm more productive with stress and
Yeah.
deadlines. So yeah, my fear would be that I would just waste all that time anyway if I wasn't working. I
Yeah.
probably would need to do like some co-work space or something at a regular time and get myself a routine because when I don't have a routine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as previously mentioned, I like snacks and lazing around. So
Right. So Marshall and I talked about sort of his perspective on the relationship between the writer and the reader in the mystery genre, specifically. Uh, so how do you approach the challenge of engaging readers, like in subverting their expectations, basically, and how do you handle that sort of challenge? Subverting expectations is very hard.
I try to ask more questions than I answer. Yeah, I'm working with a ton of co-authors right now, and one of them just sent me an outline. And he literally explained, like what I would consider to be every twist in the book in like the first or second chapter. Like he laid out all the pieces that would basically become those twists right at the
Yeah.
very beginning, which means, like the story is still there, but there to me it's not interesting anymore because I know what caused, all these different
Yeah.
things to happen. So I'm trying to teach him, like how to do this. So like I know I could edit it, but I'm trying to get him to go through, highlight these particular things, like what are facts that we could use as a twist later? Why are they right here? Let's figure out how to put them, 3/4 of the way book and have it be a surprise to the reader. It's almost like taking all the pieces of a puzzle and just shuffling them around a little bit. Like you still have the same information, the same pieces, but you have to make sure they're in the right order for it to be effective.
See
So
that? Oh,
I
go
just
ahead, Jenna.
well, I just read this, I don't know where I heard it, but it stuck out to me, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Is that no matter what genre you're writing, your opening chapters should seduce the reader, and I think that that's really an interesting thing to look at, because we tend to look at seduction as a sexual thing, but
Mm.
you can be seduced to do anything really, right? It's like being charmed into it. And I thought that's actually really an interesting way of looking at it, because I think it applies to every genre, thrillers, horror, right? Like how are you sort of like luring that reader into your
Yeah.
world? And
That's why I start every book with "How you doing?"
okay,
hello.
that's all right, Kevin. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So
No, I
JD,
like that.
you said something though that because one of the hangups I always had with outlining is that I had a bad habit of losing interest in the story once I had an outline. Like, I became a discovery writer specifically because I don't want to know how the book ends. I want to get to that point. So that's been a challenge to overcome as I've embraced the whole outlining, process. I also think I overthink outlines is what I've discovered, especially in the book that we're working on.
I see that with a lot of people. They tend to think that an outline needs to be, like literally lay out every single fact that's going to happen in the book, and it needs to be 30 or 40,000 words long, because that's
Yeah.
where you end up when you do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
My outlines are pretty vague. I have one or two sentences usually for each chapter, just
Hmm.
enough so I know, what I'm doing to keep that story moving forward. It's basically just my building blocks. I just try to create a skeleton to leave myself the wiggle room. So when I get in there and actually start writing, I can expand on these things and go off into the weeds a little bit if I want to and come back. Because if you create such ridiculously detailed outline, then it's so rigid. The story I think comes across that way. It's not fun to write. It's not fun to read. You've got to find somewhere in the middle that works for you.
I think
Yeah.
it also depends on your personality. Like I am one of those writers, I actually don't enjoy drafting. It's I don't like it. So for me, I've learned that an outline um actually helps me stay interested and stay focused, because I solve all the problems ahead of time, and then you know, I can, when I sit down to write, it kind of becomes more an exercise in shaping instead of creating.
Yeah.
And I really I like that. Like I like editing. I can edit a novel faster than I can draft a novel.
Yeah.
So if I do an outline, and I just keep building on that. And the more detailed it is, actually, the better it is for me and the faster I go. So I I don't know. I do think that you should be aware of what your personality is and like
Yeah.
what's going
I
to
mean,
keep you excited.
yeah. And that brings, so something I've noticed, like I went through a little bit of a crisis for a while, and it kind of really dinged me on my writing. And what I've noticed is I've had some, and I'll just call them personality changes, right? Like to the point where I kind of wonder if something happened. And maybe Christine can help me figure out if
We'll
like
talk
something
later.
got
We'll talk.
miswired in my brain. But now, so like I used to hate the editing, and now I really enjoy the edit and rewrite process. And I used to dread and hate and even just have an existential crisis over the idea of outlining. And now my whole perspective has changed on that. And I'm not going to rush gung ho into outlining per se, but having the story beats there,
Yeah.
kind of figuring it out, piecing it out. I don't know that it's improved my like storytelling process per se, but it's definitely helped me, calm the F down basically. And to be able to get back to the part of the writing that I love. Like I'm enjoying it again. Um, Even though I might veer wildly from the outline at times, it's a little bit
Yeah.
like knowing that, yeah, I'm swimming, but the side of the pool is like right there. I guess that's kind of a way to look at it.
Well, it's like a map, I think. And, some
But it's not the
people
territory. That's what I've
like
learned.
going into the wild and,
Yeah.
having no idea what's going to come next. And they're able to do that based on like whatever instincts that they have as a storyteller. And I think that's great. Like if that's what you can do, like,
Yeah.
I get lost and overwhelmed and, I end up going in circles. So for me, having that guide is very, very, very helpful. You just have to know yourself. Also, Kevin, that's called growth. Oh.
Maturity. I see.
Had to happen sometime.
All right. So
All right, we
we're
can
out of
wrap
time.
up.
Yeah, I'm
We're
gonna
out of
wrap it
time.
up.
Yeah, let's
So,
wrap it up.
JD, who is up next week?
All right, next week we've got Stephen Graham Jones coming on. Stephen's a New York Times bestselling author and recipient of several awards. He's also an English teacher at the University of Colorado in Boulder. His latest novel is called The Buffalo Hunter, about a vampire who haunts the fields of Blackfeet Reservation. The book releases March 18th. Stephen Graham Jones.
That sounds awesome. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.